Let's take a turn. I feel like we're exposing the life insurance industry right now.
We stayed quiet probably for like a minute, literally a minute of just silence on the call. And Matt and I just looked at each other like, why not? Had we known that we weren't going to make it through that season in solar and that we were going to pivot, we would have held back that $30,000. You got to have some grit, high performer, willing to put in the work and make the investment. Your energy resources, your time resources, and your financial resources. You have to be willing to make those investments. Even in our model, like you gotta want to fucking win. My name's Oriana Mishler, so I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer at Lion Rock Financial Services, headquartered in Orlando, Florida.
Welcome to the conversation where we help everyday people escape the 9-to-5 and build lives of freedom. Today, we're talking about insurance brokers, specifically in the life insurance industry. And I have Oriana here, who has started her own life insurance firm, her own brokerage, and she went from being a life coach to living the life of her dreams. Oriana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Oriana Mishler. So I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer at Lion Rock Financial Services, headquartered in Orlando, Florida, with 6 other satellite offices currently. We have a team of about close to 150 agents.
Wow.
Selling life insurance with us. Just want to say thank you for having me on and for the opportunity to share our story.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And a little backstory, Oriana used to be a life coach, and that's how we got connected. Back when I was an investment banker, I was working so many hours that I was just stressed and I had horrible sleep and I just didn't have the life that I wanted. I was unhappy. And I knew I wanted to leave, but I didn't know what that looked like. And so I was reaching out to people and there was no one that was qualified enough to really help me because I was already a high performer. Oriana was the only person that I could work with that was able to give me advice that actually resonated as a high performer. And so I've loved to see her journey going from a life coach where she was already doing very well to having a brokerage where now she has 150 agents working for her. So that's kind of our backstory and how we know each other. And I just want to say I'm super happy for you and super proud of you for what you've built.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. And I'm super proud of you as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm currently unemployed. So we're figuring it out. So I gave a little bit about your story, but could you tell us where you are today and what was the journey of how you got there?
So Lion Rock Financial just turned 2 in October, about a month ago. We started off out of our kitchen. It's kind of the hero story behind it, the journey. We literally started this brokerage firm out of our kitchen with 3 people, myself, my husband, and my husband's brother. And we just decided, hey, we're going to test this business model for 3 months before we bring anybody else into the opportunity. And we're going to see if it works. If it works, then we'll go from there. If it doesn't work, we're going to pivot into we don't know what. So that's kind of where we were at. We were transitioning out of the solar industry where we had experienced kind of some massive financial highs and lows, lots of unpredictability financially, and lots of the emotional highs and lows that go along with not being able to predict your income. I guess the government had changed interest rates, and all of a sudden it just didn't make financial sense for people to buy solar anymore. No matter how you positioned the offer, people just weren't buying this product, and we couldn't blame them. Right? It just didn't make sense. And so we went from, making, almost $60,000 months to, then 40, then 30, then 20, then 7 to how are we going to pay our rent? And it was really scary. And so we're starting to see that writing on the wall, like we need to pivot. We need to do something else quick. So we started to reach out to our network. When we were in one of our best months, somebody from our network had reached out about the opportunity in life insurance. And we just said, hey, we just don't have the time. We don't have the energy. And honestly, we're doing really well. So we're not interested. So we went back to that conversation, just kind of like, hey, so what were you talking about 6 months ago? We're ready to hear you out. And thankfully, they were gracious enough to still have that conversation with us and offer us the opportunity. So because the opportunity really sounded like almost like too good to be true, we thought, let's just see, do these products really sell? And does this lead generation system really work? Can we make money? And if so, then let's start growing this thing. And so we were about 2.5 months in. We started with 3. We were at 12 now. Fast forward to January of 2024. We got an office. So we closed the first 2.5 months with about $147,000 worth of business. We closed 2024 at $9.2 million different revenue. which was amazing. We grew our business, our team to about 80 people at that point in time. And then we had a big split about 7 months in. We started hitting $1 million revenue months, and things started getting really ugly with some of the relationships in the business. So we knew like, hey, we're not aligned with certain people that we're in business with. We got to change some things. And we had to make a split with our lead generation provider, which was a tough call and an even tougher thing to follow through with. So there was kind of like we went from about 80 people to about 40 people very quickly. Our revenue got cut in half approximately at that point in time, about 7-8 months into the operation. But nonetheless, like we made it through a super tough, challenging season in mid 2024 and closed the year at 9.2. 25, we're about year to date, we're at about 20 million, hoping to close the year at about 25 million.
Wow, that's massive.
It's exciting. We've done a lot, but it's also taken a lot to do so much in 2 years.
I think what a lot of people see when they see people who are successful, oh, well, they're lucky, they're successful, whatever it may be, overnight success. You went through the highs and lows. I mean, this wasn't the first business you tried. You did solar and you did really well. And then you saw it all go away to the point where you're struggling to make rent. And then you had to start over completely in a whole different industry. So what was that like?
Yeah, well, for one, it was scary, right? It was really scary to see something that we had poured so much time and energy and investment into, which was solar. Not only were we doing solar sales, but we were also doing solar lead generation. And we had just pumped like our last $30,000 into a last-ditch effort on our solar lead gen system. And that system actually never got off the ground before we ended up deciding that we were just going to trash it and pivot, because it really did become clear that we had invested that last $30,000 in the wrong thing, essentially, right? In something like trying to revive a dying beast instead of trying to move in a forward direction on a new opportunity. In hindsight, everything's 2020, had we known that we weren't going to make it through that season in solar and that we were going to pivot, we would have held back that $30,000, right, for the new opportunity. But we didn't know, we were really trying to save our business and trying to make it work. And I think that that's a really important lesson that a lot of people in business need to know. Like, you need to learn when to call it quits. Everybody says, don't quit, keep going. And there's some truthfulness to that, but you also need to know where the line is, between like grinding and pushing something forward and going like, you know what, we've taken this as far as it's going to get. Let's pivot the heck out of this thing before, this crashes and burns into ashes.
That is amazing advice in terms of the pivot. And this is a conversation I just had with the software founder. The main reason that people fail is that they get so in love with their idea and they get so determined to make it work that they don't see the opportunities right in front of them to pivot. And sometimes that's the most important thing you do. And I told the story about how all these companies had exits and the VC looked at the decks of the companies that exited and said, what do they have in common? And the only thing they had in common was that when they sold the company, they were doing something completely different than what they pitched. And that's a perfect illustration of why you can't just force something to work when you need to pivot. And so you guys did an excellent job of doing that. And you've come to this point of success, but there's been highs and lows. And the only way that you can have this positive outcome is by having the risk and the uncertainty. And you've seen the negatives and the teeth bite of the risk, but you've also seen the light at the end of the tunnel and then turned that risk and uncertainty into success. So you've gone the whole gambit. And that's the only way that you can have that level of success.
Yeah, a lot of people say like, our business owners, like entrepreneurs, like you have to have a little bit of crazy. And I do think that that's true, but I don't necessarily think it's crazy. It's like you have to have so much belief, like almost like a very, like a level of belief in your vision that nobody else will possibly have. Like I'm lucky enough that my husband and I are in this business together. And so we both share a very powerful belief about where we're going and our vision and why we're going there and where it is that we're going, what we need to do to get there. Like we share the belief, but most entrepreneurs are not doing this on their own or with someone that they trust at the level of a marriage like that, right? Like they are doing it on their own. And so you have to enroll people into your vision and into your level of belief. But you have to also accept like nobody's going to have the level of belief that you do as the business owner and co-founder about where you're going. And you got to be okay with that, because if you want everybody else's approval on your, what seems to them like crazy, you're not going to get it.
What's really interesting here is, how did you reconcile having such a strong vision and determination with letting go of something and starting over? How did that vision evolve?
Mostly because we started doing it on our own, like meaning the work, right? And this is, I think, another area where some co-founders, they will struggle unnecessarily. And that has to do with wanting to found a company, but not wanting to actually do all of the nitty gritty, get your hands dirty, the gross part of building the business. You can't just pump a bunch of money into something and not get your hands dirty and expect for other people to come in and get their hands dirty where you're not willing. What we have learned is, like, being in the business and literally starting it from the ground up, we had to do the thing. We had to sell the product. We couldn't just start recruiting people. We had to understand not only the products, but we had to understand what it was like to be a salesperson of those products, and the types of objections that salespeople in that role are going to be facing, and how to overcome those objections in skillful ways. We couldn't just bring people on and tell them, hey, sell these things, and we would have no clue how to sell them or how to overcome the objections. We really had to bang around and lose a bunch of sales ourselves, trying to figure out what is the script that people need to hear to be able to be willing to purchase this product from us, or these series of products. And with that, you also learn who you're selling to, who's willing to buy your product and for how much. And all of that is really, really pertinent information to your ability to recruit other people to do that thing. So I know that that none of that stuff is actually sexy or luxurious, right? But that is the path to building massive wealth and freedom as a business owner, is that you're the one doing that dirty work first, and then you can teach other people to do that dirty work. And when they know that you did the dirty work first, then they'll respect you more for not only what you did to pave the way, but they'll respect you more when they're learning from you as far as how to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And a metaphor I think about is that usually the person who was the king of a kingdom was usually the best warrior. And so if you're a salesperson, for instance, and you're at the head of the organization, yeah, everyone below you is doing the thing. But if something gets escalated to you, you can bet your ass the person at the top is going to close the deal, and they're going to do it so smoothly, ways that the people below them just wish they could do. And that's why they're at the top of the organization.
Absolutely. So when people come into your organization and they see that not only did you pave the way when this thing was brand new and nobody even knew what the heck it was, and also you took the greatest amount of risk. Starting the business, all the financial investments associated with starting the business, with building systems, with automating, with recruiting, with everything. You really have to have a strong stomach. This is not for the faint of heart, but you have to have a strong backbone to be able to really push forward in certain things, certain areas, and build this, because you're wearing every hat. Your marketing, your sales, your customer retention, you're the janitor, you're the IT person, you're a lot of things, and that doesn't necessarily have to last forever, but you want to be able to do it at least enough to know what the heck you're talking about and to sound dangerous, so to speak.
This is a topic that has come up with all the conversations I've had. Any business can be passive income. The only way to be passive income is by transitioning from an operator to an owner. The only way to transition from an operator to owner is to have airtight systems and competent people. The only way to have airtight systems and competent people is to create them yourself. And the only way to do that is to know the ins and outs of the business, how it operates, how the people operate within the business, and then create those systems and train those people to be competent, so competent that you can step away. You can't just start a business with money. You can't be a leader if you haven't been in the weeds. That's my true belief. And I think that anyone who wants to start a business, no matter what it is, do the thing first, and that will set you up for success in the future.
Yeah. And in that time frame, just set your expectation properly too. especially if you haven't grown a business before or been in a startup. Maybe you weren't the founder of a startup, but you were in a startup, so you had some proximity. Set your expectations properly. Like, it's not going to be easy. It's, some parts are going to be really challenging. Some parts are going to be not fun. And some things are really going to force you to kind of grow and, expand your willingness to ask for help, find the right people, know how to talk to that talent to get them to support you. Even if you're not onboarding them, maybe you can ask for their support in a different way for whatever it is that you're doing, knowing that, when what you're doing is new, people are going to have low confidence, and that's okay. Let them have low confidence until you can show them enough evidence for why they should have more confidence in you, and in what you're doing, but hold the vision. Don't let your vision go just because somebody told you, well, I don't know if it could work, or in my experience this, or hold your big vision, because that's what's going to carry you through when doubters come around. And also when your own self, the self-doubt that you will experience as a business owner, trust me, it's so much more impactful and it's worse than anything anybody could say to you. And your vision needs to be what's going to sustain you when your own self-doubt starts creeping in and going like, man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. You need to be able to talk back to your self-doubt and be like, fuck that. Like, I'm here, doing the thing, and I got this far, and I didn't get this far to just get this far and get dropped off, right? Like, I'm in it.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
What is your big vision?
So our vision is to grow our agency to about 2,000 agents. And in order for us to do that, right, certain things are required. So for one, we own our lead generation system. And right now we're in a phase of our business where we are attempting to diversify our lead generation system. Because it's very difficult to own and also manage your own lead gen. But when you do manage your own lead gen, then you realize, you can't just coast. You now need to diversify your lead gen, because if something happens to the one and only one you have, you need to have a backup plan. So that's where we are right now. So we believe that by diversifying our lead gen system, we can produce enough leads for the life insurance agents that we bring on to build a team up to 2,000 people.
Where did the number 2,000 come from? Why not 996?
Yeah, I know. It actually came from a challenge to think bigger than we actually were, because our business started doing $1 million a month within 7 months, right? And that was not something that we ever imagined, Ben. Like, we were like, holy shit, what do we do? So it was like we were impressed by the level of revenue generation and creation that we were having, and the success that we were experiencing. And when money started coming in, then we started thinking like, man, how far can we take this thing? So we started thinking like, okay, if we have a $10 million agency, that would be amazing, right? Sounds great. And then we went to our coach because we have a business coach. We believe deeply in being coached by people who've been there and done that. And our coach challenged us, and he said, where did 10 million come from? Just like you just said. And we were like, well, it just sounded like a good number, and he was like, why not 1 billion? And we were like, we just kind of stayed quiet probably for like a minute, literally a minute of just silence on the call. And Matt and I just looked at each other like, why not? Like, why is it that has never crossed our minds up to this point in time? We were working with a coach who has, a very large organization himself. And what we realized is that we were thinking really small. And we didn't even realize. We thought that our thinking was big, but it wasn't. We realized we're thinking pretty small for what we're capable of and for the trajectory, like the growth trajectory that we're on. If you could imagine, like we almost did 10 million our first year, so like our goal would have been like blown out of the water. But then we would have been like, okay, now what do we do? So our coach challenged us, why not 1 billion? And we said, yeah, why not 1 billion? There really is no reason why not. Why we wouldn't set a number that big. And so what we kind of reverse engineered was, in order to get there, we would need about 2,000 people working in our agency doing sales production.
That's amazing. I like how you reverse engineered it and backed in from a goal to a specific path to achieve that goal. And I would like at some point to get into the actual data points around someone starting this, but this is such a good conversation. I kind of want to keep it going. The number 1 billion, why is that an important number to you? Like, what is the motivation? What is it that makes you want to achieve 1 billion? Why not 10 billion? Why not 100 billion? Like, what is it that is motivating you to hit these numbers?
Yeah. So it's really not even about the money. It's, as high performers ourselves, and I'm sure you can relate, it's not about the money, especially once you have the money. Then it's like, okay, so who cares? Like, how many meals can I buy? How many shoes can I have? How many whatever can I buy? Like, whatever. It's really not about that. And I don't mean that in an insensitive way. Because we came from nothing, but it is kind of like a point that I think is worth making, because a lot of people think like, oh, well, you're just in it for the money. No, we're not. 1 billion really comes from the level of impact that we believe we could be making in the world. We're here to make a dent in the universe, so to speak. We have close to 150 sales professionals, agents working for us. And we really pride ourselves on the fact that just about any competent sales professional can come into our organization, go through training, learn our process, become part of a high-performing team, and make 6 figures in their first year. And we take pride in that. Now, what does it mean to have a person that makes 6 figures in your organization and then to multiply that by, let's say, 150? That means that there's 150 individuals that are making a good living, right? A solid, good living, providing for their families by way of this organization, and they're out there and they're buying cars, they're buying houses, they're buying clothes, they're going out to eat, they're paying taxes, they're sending their kids to private school and giving their children, good opportunities to play sports and do great things. And that matters. That matters, right? Like I think in our first year, we calculated that we probably pumped about $10 million back into the Central Florida economy. And that matters, right? Like our organization is making an impact in the economies where it's located. And for the people that we serve, not only our clients, providing them with a reliable life insurance product that can make a difference on the worst day of their life, which is when somebody in their family passes away. But we're also providing the people that work in our organization with the opportunity to make a great impact, doing something that matters, and also make a good living while they're doing it. They can sleep at night knowing they didn't twist somebody's arm into a sale that they can't afford. They helped a family and they made a good living.
Yeah, I like how that you pointed out this is mutually beneficial and that you're not extracting value. This is a consensual trade between two people, and then you're creating value not by taking, but by also giving value. I think it's important so that people who work in the world of sales, they sell something that they actually believe in. First of all, you're going to have a way higher success rate than if you're trying to push something that you don't really believe on and try all these shady tactics. It's way easier to speak to something that you truly believe. And then sales just becomes having a conversation, helping someone that you care about, as opposed to trying to convince someone to do something that's not in their best interest.
Right, which is usually the reason that people resist sales too, especially when they're new to business ownership or entrepreneurship. They resist sales because they feel like it's, it's kind of slimy, or I shouldn't have to convince someone to buy something they don't want to buy. And you really have to reframe that. If you're talking to the right person, there is no convincing. There might be influencing, there's educating, there's consulting for sure, but you're not going to be convincing somebody of something that they don't want to buy when you're selling the right product that you believe in and when you're talking to the right avatar.
So I'm going to just make one more point and then we'll move on. I believe, and the reason I was hammering this, if you throw out an arbitrary number and there's no reason behind that specific number, a lot of people will throw out a goal just to say, maybe $1 million. It's like, okay, well, why $1 million? And they don't believe that they can achieve that number. And 1 million means nothing to them because they don't know what that delivers. And I think if you have emotion behind a number, and that number is borderline calculated, it's like, okay, I want this car, I want this house, I want this level of ability to travel, freedom, restaurants, whatever, create a budget. It's like, that is the number I want to hit. And that's why I want to hit it, because I can actually see the life that I would create with that number. And then once you hit that number, trust me, lifestyle inflation is real. It will grow. But then you have a lot more drive and emotion to hit that number than if it's just an arbitrary number. And I think if you're motivating salespeople, it really helps when you're like, hey, what do you want? And then when you talk to them, it's not like just a number. You don't say you could make X dollars this month. It's you could get that thing that you wanted. You could help your mom in the way that you wanted to help her. You could live that. You could take that trip that you wanted instead of just saying, hit this number because this number is big. You throw emotion behind it, you assign a meaning to it, and it changes everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe in that. One, it's a great opportunity to get to know your people by asking them what they actually want to create in their own lives, right? Like my husband and I know what we want to create, right? We want to create this business and we want to create great opportunities, business opportunities for other people. But when you really get into the nitty gritty with the people that work with you, I don't want them to come in here thinking that their work is to contribute to my household. I want them to come in here knowing, hey, their work is to contribute to their own household, their own family, their own dreams. Which is 100% accurate.
Awesome. So let's keep moving forward and we'll try to get through some of these data points for our platform that we're building kind of quickly, just because we just had an amazing opening conversation, but it did last 30 minutes. So if you don't mind me asking, you are the owner of this brokerage. How much money do you personally make? You gave us some revenue figures, but if you could just open the kimono a little bit, how much of that goes to you?
Our revenue, meaning like after expenses and what we take home. And granted, it wasn't always this. This is what we have grown to over time. Okay. So we're close to $300,000 a month currently.
Wow, that is incredible. I've made decent money in my life. That is just an extraordinary amount to be taking home as income.
Yeah, I mean, we're incredibly grateful. Like I said, this business has grown really fast. I will also say, and I think it's important to say, like as the business owners, we probably reinvest about 50 to 60% of that money every single month goes right back into the business.
Of the 300,000?
Yeah.
Okay. And so how much do you personally get to take home of that?
We're bringing home, I would say probably closer to 150.
But you could take home the full 300 if you wanted to?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you choose to take your personal money and reinvest it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, about 50 to 60% we reinvest.
Okay. Because you're shooting for that growth goal, not trying to get complacent with your small, measly little 300K a month.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. We're still in a hyper growth phase in our organization, and it does cost a lot to recruit top talent. It costs a lot to maintain office space, physical office space. It costs a lot in terms of like incentives and perks and gifts and all the stuff that we give out to keep our team motivated, and awards and rewards. We used to be at a point in our organization, like we would give a reward to anybody who did $30,000 worth of what's called issued premium per month, which means they would need to make probably closer to like $40,000 to $45,000 worth of sales. The issued premium means the number of sales that stuck, meaning the customer made their first payment. And so we would reward that level. Well, now our team has grown and the level of competence on our team has grown to where we not only have people, a huge number of people on our roster doing more than $30,000 a month, but we have people doing $40,000 and $50,000 a month. And so it's like, how do you reward all of these people for their top performance? It's a good problem to have, but in a hyper growth phase, again, with top performers on a team that you want to stick around, we're just not in a place where we're willing to take that much off the top, if you will. We can live off 150 a month perfectly fine.
A lot of the opportunity for someone watching this at home is, okay, I could either try to start a brokerage from scratch like you did, or I could start working as a broker in a brokerage, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's really important for people to know that anybody can do this. Anybody can start a brokerage firm. Anybody can start a team of licensed life insurance professionals and start building from there. It is a lot harder to start your own, much harder. In that case, it really does matter who you know and what kind of relationships they have with life insurance carriers who would be paying commissions. But if you're not at a level where like you have those type of business relationships that you could tap into, or the finances, then I would say affiliating yourself with a very highly reputable brokerage firm like ours is the next best thing you could do. Ensuring that the firm that you affiliate with is one that's going to allow you to grow and to build a team.
I want to get some kind of explicit ranges here, and I want to be very realistic because the audience watching this is going to be evaluating this business model against all the different other things that they could do with their life and figuring out if this is the right one for them. So if someone comes in and works under you guys, or even not under you guys, I guess because you guys' model is a bit more hardcore, if you will, than the general insurance broker agency world, could you talk about what someone should expect to make as like a mid-level performer doing this outside of your brokerage, and then what it's like inside your brokerage, and then what it's like as a broker?
So in this industry, it can be really volatile. It really depends on, again, where an agent affiliates. So a lot of agencies will allow their agents to work remote and affiliate from anywhere. One of the things that you want to ask is whether or not that agency owns their own lead generation system or not, or where they expect their agents to obtain life insurance leads. I have not met any firms that pay a high commission and also provide free leads. You know, if they're providing leads for free, they probably pay 50% commission or less. So you want to make sure, you know, if you want the higher upside, that you have some resources available to pay for your own leads. Now, our agents do pay for their own leads, but we provide them with the leads at a discounted rate because we own our own lead generation system and we make money off of the life insurance sale. We have a very much a vested interest in ensuring that the quality of the lead is there. And so this is why lead gen questions are so important when affiliating with a brokerage firm, because many of them that are using third-party lead generation companies, those third-party companies have no vested interest in ensuring lead quality. They only are ensuring lead quantity. And so you could get a call labeled a lead for car insurance, something that you're not licensed to sell, but they will still call that a lead and they will still bill you for that lead and expect you to pay for it, or not refund you for it, even though it was not a life insurance lead. So, you know, really, it depends on what the agent is looking for. If you're looking for an opportunity where, you know, you're going to be with a high performing team, more likely to make the higher upside and to earn six figures in a year than an agency like ours that has, you know, some kind of like restrictions, is better for you. While our agents actually don't work remote, or all of our agents are working out of one of our offices, because that's where agents perform the best, is on a high performing, high functioning team where they can get the coaching and support that they need. Not every brokerage firm requires that or even has offices available for you to work from. But you need to go as a person that's potentially interested in being a life insurance broker. You need to go and affiliate yourself with where you believe that you will be the most successful and where they're offering you the best compensation package. It's still most likely going to be 100% commission in terms of the role, meaning you eat what you kill 100% of the time. But, you know, some agencies are paying 80% commission to start, you know, with paid leads. Some are offering free leads, but 50 or 40% commission to start. Some of them are offering 100 or 110% commission, but they will give you no leads whatsoever. And you have to figure out where you're going to sell and to whom and how and everything, right? Like you're on your own.
Yeah, I think this is really important because the people I'm talking to are the freedom seekers. These are the people that are typically working a job. They're looking for something to start on the side that could supplement their income. And so the insurance broker model is something that is available to people through different brokerages that they can start remote. They can start it on the side. Oriana, your model is more, we focus on setting up our people for success as much as possible by doing all these things, but requiring them to come in office. Your specific model is a great opportunity for someone looking for a career change to earn a lot more money.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the folks that we attract into our business as recruits are people who have been doing, you know, 100% commission sales and out there grinding, right? Either whether they're B2B and all they do is visit different businesses all day, or they literally are doing in-home appointments for like solar, for example, like what we were doing, or for some other product, but they're in-home appointments. So they're road warriors, right? They're driving all over the state trying to close deals, but they're out there grinding essentially. We do have some people quite a few people that come from like technical retail sales, like cell phones, Verizon, things like that. So they can understand selling a technical product. And they have the patience to be able to explain the technicalities and features behind something that's a little bit more complex per se. In life insurance sales, one of your questions was like how much people can expect to earn. One, it depends on the commission rate that you accept when you affiliate somewhere. It also depends on the volume of sales that are available for you. So let's say, for our people, we start people for the most part at 80% commission, and then they have the opportunity to purchase 50 up to like 50 to 60 leads are pretty much guaranteed per week for a flat lead fee. And they're also doing telephone or telesales. So the leads are coming to you in office. You don't have to grind and go out there knocking on doors, searching for leads, and go into 100 networking events a month trying to find people who care about life insurance. So the leads come to you, you're in office, you're with a fun, supportive team. Our agents, considering how much they're making in return, paying a fixed lead fee week to week isn't really a big deal.
I do have a database that I have to fill in with specific numbers. Very curious, if you were to say people who don't work with you, because there's trade-offs, right? You can have freedom and flexibility with this. You can start this as a side hustle. You can work for other brokerages, but there's trade-offs, right? So if you start with one of the kind of more free brokerages, the brokerages that provide more freedom rather, what is kind of for an average person, what you should expect? Like you get into this, you're an average person, what should you expect to make? And then with you guys, how different is that?
The average life insurance agent utilizing the traditional model of life insurance sales, which is in-home appointments. These agents are closing about 8 to 10 deals per month. And so their issued premium is probably closer to about $10,000 to $15,000 per month. And so their take home after their expenses and after their grind is probably closer to like $5,000 to $8,000 a month, maybe.
Okay, and that includes they have to buy their leads, they have to do all sorts of things that come out of that take home, and that includes that.
Yeah, they're on the road all day.
In order to have flexibility and freedom, you do have to kind of physically show up to places, but you can do it on your own terms. Is that correct?
Yes, for the most part. Yeah.
Can you do this remote? Is there a path to that?
Yeah, actually, a lot of people are doing it remote. Like they've replaced it. They've done it really well because they've replaced the in-home appointment model with the video call model. They're more efficient wherever their location is. They're doing, instead of going to people's houses, they're doing the same appointment, but it's a video call.
Okay, and then tell me about your model. Obviously, you do your model your way because you believe it's superior. So what are kind of the results of doing it your way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mentioned the average out in the field agent, right? About 8 to 10 policies per month that they sell. Our agents average about 8 to 10 policies sold per week. So the monthly revenue of your average typical sales agent in the field is our agent's weekly revenue.
So that's not an outstanding person. That's the average in your firm.
So we have a requirement for our agents to be closing at least $17,000, not worth of business, but they need to have $17,000 worth of issued premium, meaning their customers paid. So there's always going to be some fall off, right? So if they sell about $25,000 worth of revenue, they can expect about $17,000 to $20,000 worth of issued premium if they're keeping their fall off within a reasonable rate, which is about 20% in our organization. Out in the field, the fall off is about 30 to 35%.
How do you define fall off? Is that people who say they're going to pay and then they don't pay?
That's correct. Those are deals that close on paper, but the customer never actually makes their first payment.
Of the people who join your sales organization, I understand, as you said, it is eat what you kill. Another reason I included this as one of the business models is because you do kind of have to build your own book of business. You're not an employee in the traditional sense because you don't receive a salary. You have to eat what you kill. And so that's another reason I am including this. With that in mind, what percentage of people that come in your doors actually succeed and make a profit? Because you have to buy your leads. Do you actually get underwater temporarily?
Yeah. So the percentage of people that succeed in our organization is 83%. We know that number really well. I would say that the percentage of people who are successful, that's in their first 12 months specifically. The percentage of life insurance agents that are successful out in the field in their first 12 months is 10.
Not in your organization.
No, outside of our organization. Yeah. So outside of our organization, the typical life insurance agent who's out there grinding, going to people's homes to do appointments, only 10% of those people are still in life insurance after their first year.
I mean, that sounds like a number I would expect. Are you happy, like, if anyone pushes on this, would you be able to provide proof of both the percentage of success rate for your agents and also the typical earnings for your agents?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so it's safe to say that your agents have 8 times the success rate and 4 times the earnings of people who do it in the field, but people who do it in the field, meaning kind of work under other brokerages, freelancing, they can still do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely a model that can work. You just have to be willing to engage in the work, in the process, and find a way that works for you. I mean, I know people that are, doing quite a lot in revenue, 6 figures a month in revenue, meeting with people on video calls. They're not on our brokerage firm, because that's not how we operate. But, I have seen those people and met those people in the industry, and they're successful doing that model. You can actually find a lot of those people on Instagram and other social media platforms where they're talking about their products and their model and, why they believe they're superior, and you can schedule a call with them. Typically, those are like, not lone wolf agents because they are affiliated with brokerages, but lone wolf in that, like, they're working from home or remote from somewhere, and they've found success utilizing a social media platform as a lead generation tool. And also, they're comfortable being on camera and creating content at that level, which is a whole other beast in and of itself, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting into it now. If I were to give an explicit range, someone on their own in the field, as low as, if you're doing this full time and your average $5,000 a month, is that typical for someone outside of your organization freelancing this?
Yeah, outside of our organization, freelancing it, in-home appointments.
Sure.
Yeah, they're probably doing like $2,500 to $5,000 a month.
And then people in your organization, not the outstanding exception, but like the high end of the average person, like 30 grand a month.
I would say a take-home pay after expenses. No, we're looking at probably closer to like $15,000 to $20,000 a month, like a just above average person in our organization.
Okay, great. I think those are solid numbers that we can roll with. And I really appreciate you offering transparency on that as well. And in terms of income stability, my understanding is that this is a recurring revenue model. How stable is the income with this?
Do you mean for like the brokers in the agency?
For the brokers in the agency, yes.
Yeah, this is one of the models that we've been able to find that it offers the most stability for brokers because our lead generation capacity is stable, right? So we've been able to create both predictability and sustainability with lead generation. So that allows the agents to maintain predictable and sustainable revenue as long as they're working, right? Now, let's say, for example, if an agent, because they're still independent contractors, right? So if an agent comes in and let's say they leave 2 hours early every day, right? They get here an hour late after the dialer turns on and they leave an hour early. So that's 2 hours that they're leaving on the table. Your above average agent could have probably closed at least, I should say, let me back up a little bit. That is 10 hours a week that they're not on the dialer. So that's more than an entire day's worth of time, right? And then they are in that time frame, they could have taken at least 4 calls per day in those 2 hours, right? So that's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So that's 20 calls per week that they're missing, right? So we're at about a 10 to 15% close ratio. So if you miss 20 calls a week, had you taken those calls, you probably would have closed 3 to 4 of them. So you're probably leaving like $2,500 on the table.
Is this a recurring revenue model? Like if you close someone, do you get paid once or do you get paid ongoing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the industry as a model as a whole, we work with what are called advanced commissions. Easy math example, right? So let's say you close a life insurance policy and that customer's monthly payment is $100 a month. So $100 a month times 12 months, that's $1,200. The life insurance carrier is going to pay the agent 75% or 9 months worth of commissions upfront. when the customer makes their first payment. Okay, so $100 times 9, so that's $900. And the agent is going to get their commission level of the $900. So let's say they're at 80% commission. So they're going to get 80% of 900. So what is that, like 760? So they're going to get that in advance. Like the day, within a few days after the customer makes their first payment, they get that amount. So they get the first 9 months worth of commissions in advance. Now, when that policy becomes 10 months old, 11, and then 12 months old, they're getting those last 3 months, 1 month at a time, right? So they're getting 80% of 100. The following years, they're getting, let's say starting in month 13, they're getting about a 2 to 5% residual on that policy, depending on the type of life insurance policy that was sold. So there typically are no residuals on term life policies. Whole life policies that retain cash value, those are usually between 2 to 5% residuals.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, the brokerage, I guess the business that you own, takes on risk by paying commissions for the brokers up front that they hope the customer will continue to pay to return that investment. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's very close. So instead of Lion Rock Financial being the one that's paying out those commissions, it's actually the life insurance carrier.
So you guys don't take on the risk.
Correct. No,
That's good.
yeah. It's the same company that would pay the death benefit to the client. That's the carrier. So we're the brokerage firm. So we're maintaining essentially a remote sales force on behalf of this carrier. And they're the ones that pay the commission directly to the sales professional. So we're not a clearinghouse for commissions. There's another brokerage setup where we could become a clearinghouse for commissions, and something like that would make more sense if we wanted to hire our salespeople to be employees and pay them an hourly wage. But that's just not our model.
People get a one-time payment at the end of the year. If the customer stays, they get 3 more smaller payments. And then the following years, they get even smaller residuals.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So they get their first lump sum advance payment when the customer pays. So if I were to close a life insurance deal today and the customer pays tomorrow, then the life insurance carrier will pay me within about 24 to 48 business days or hours from the date my customer made their first payment.
You do have to continue to close business in order to sustain a lifestyle. Are there people that can build up like a big enough book of business on the residuals that it sustains a lifestyle, or is that just too small?
Well, yeah, absolutely, because you can build a team, which is what Matt and I have done, right? So we get a residual from what our team is producing.
Can anyone on your team do that under you, or do they have to leave and start?
No, anybody on our team can build a team and also receive residuals from their team production. Yeah, so right now we have under the Lion Rock umbrella, we have like I think 4 or maybe there's a 5th like smaller team agencies. They have met the threshold requirements for headcount and team production in order to be considered like a team or a mini agency, a sub-agency, if you will, inside of Lion Rock.
So is Lion Rock one of those mini agencies, or are you guys kind of a spun off your own thing?
So yeah, that's a good question. So Lion Rock, there's one other agency above us, the one that brought us into the organization. So that agency is actually smaller than us though. They have about...
They still get like a piece of everything that you guys bring in though?
Correct. Yeah. So in total, there are about 30 people and we have close to 150. So obviously we're like their biggest team under them.
So I'm just going to be frank. The first thing that pops into my mind with the shape of the business, right, is pyramid. And I'm sure that I don't want to just throw that out there. I'm sure other people think that as well though. Tell me, is this what people would call a pyramid scheme? If not, why not?
The industry as a whole is set up like an MLM, right? It's a multi-level marketing. Are some brokerages or agencies pyramid or brands? Yes. One of them is, I don't know if I should even name names.
Yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of times pyramid schemes get a negative connotation, and MLM and pyramid scheme, some people would interchange those. But I do want to make clear that this is all business, frankly, is that you have people below you that produce and it trickles up the business. And so the difference is the problem arises with a pyramid or an MLM model when the thing that you're selling has virtually no value.
No value.
Where you just have a thing to sell for the sake of selling it. And then the only reason that people buy it is because they're just recruiting more people to bring them in to sell this useless thing And the reason that a Ponzi scheme is different than an MLM is Ponzi was just, hey, if you pay this amount of money every month for nothing and then recruit other people, then the money just trickles down. The workaround for that was, all right, now we have a product that we sell. But if it's like, a dish or a candle or whatever it may be, a knife, oftentimes people don't care what the product is. So as long as you care what the product is and you believe that the product adds value and you're not just funneling money from one hand to another, but you're actually delivering value, there's nothing wrong with that business model.
Correct. Yeah. No, there's a lot of successful MLMs. I personally find it very interesting that life insurance industry as a whole was set up as an MLM because I'm like, how did this even happen? Life insurance is like 150 years old. So that's exactly it. I would say for people that are considering getting into life insurance as a career, one of the biggest red flags that you could find and that you should be looking out for is whether or not the agency or the brokerage that is attempting to recruit you is already asking you to recruit before you're even in. In the recruiting process, they're already saying, hey, give me a list of everybody you know and all your contacts so that we can recruit them too. That is a huge red flag, and you should run in the other direction as fast as you can.
Yeah, no one hates MLMs more than me. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm defending a whole pyramid scheme model. I think if you truly believe what you're selling, and you're selling it for the sake of selling it and you build a book of business, there's nothing wrong with that. And I will stand by that. But if you're trying to push something just because you want to make money and you don't care what you sell, well, then you're doing something highly immoral and you're just funneling money and you're just basically a front man for a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah. If the priority is recruit your friends, recruit your family, and nobody is selling, huge red flag. In our organization, so we don't even allow people to recruit for the first 6 months. They have to sell and they have to learn how to sell these products. They have to learn the products. They have to hit certain production targets. And even after 6 months, if they haven't hit the production targets and they're still here, because we usually release people after 90 days if they're just not getting it, right? But if they're here and it's been 6 months and they're still not meeting their KPIs, we still don't allow them to recruit. But 6-month waiting period is the minimum because they need to learn the products. In our agency, when you recruit someone, you take on an incredible amount of responsibility onto yourself. The way I see it, like you're now taking on the responsibility for that person's livelihood. So you better take it freaking seriously. And you better be available to train them, to lead them, to support them, to answer their questions, to teach them. And coach them through the hard stuff. And if you're not available for that, then don't freaking recruit people.
Yeah. I think this is a good rule of thumb. If someone asks you to recruit more than sell, then it's probably an immoral pyramid scheme. If you go to something where people claim to be having a get together or an event or even claim to be selling something, and they only talk about how much money that you can make for the first hour, and at the end they're like, oh, by the way, we sell this thing, that's a pyramid scheme. If people are coming in and they're like, we have an amazing product, we want you to sell it, and you could build a book of business below you, that's a legitimate business model. And so I think it's really important to draw that distinction.
Yeah, I would even add to that, like if they're recruiting you and they tell you that they have an amazing product, but they have never sold it and they can't show that the numbers showing that not only are they selling it successfully, but they have a team of people that is selling it successfully, red flag. If they're not willing to show you their books and their leaderboards and let you talk to the people selling, red flag.
Yeah, great. Do you make your own employees pay in for anything? I think you mentioned leads.
Our agents, remember, they're all independent contractors. So this is what's called a business in a box. That's what I call it, a business in a box model, right? So every single agent under the Lion Rock umbrella is their own independent business in and of themselves. They all have their own book of business that they're building, and they all do purchase leads. And then they have a fixed weekly lead cost. And for that fixed weekly cost, we allow them access to at least, we promise, 12 calls per day of like a reliable lead.
Okay. And so could there be some nefarious characters out there that just recruit people to try to get them to pay for lead cost? And then they don't really mind if they fail. They hope they do succeed, but in the end, Like at least they got the lead cost.
There's a lot of agencies like that actually, Ben. Unfortunately, there's agencies that'll say, well, they don't really care that they're recruiting people who won't get the support that they need on the sales processes. So they don't care to provide the support because they're like, well, even if this person sells one thing per month, one policy per month, I'm still going to make money. So they don't really care. They don't have KPIs at a minimum. They don't release agents, who are not performing or hitting KPIs because what does it matter to them? If you sell one thing per year, they make money. Meanwhile, you're starving, and you don't have the support you need to be successful. So that's essentially the way that we built Lion Rock, was in a model in hopes that would close all of these giant gaping holes that we observed in the industry when we first came in, that we said, that's not right. That sucks. That's wrong. That's not supportive. And we set out to close all of those BS loopholes that were honestly keeping us back from being successful. So, we saw what was going on in the marketplace and we said, we can do it better. And that's what we set out to do. And that's what I believe that we've done.
Let's take a turn. I feel like we're exposing the life insurance industry right now. And I'm glad that you've built something that you're proud of and can stand behind, and that actually serves both your customers and your employees. And I think that you've been very transparent, and a lot of people try to hide the ball on some of this stuff, but you've been very open and honest. And I think that people will see that and it will go a long way, and they'll think, wow, all right, I don't want to work under a certain model, but I do want to work under a different model. And I applaud you for being transparent. And, even though you and I are friends, I am pushing to try to get the real information, because the whole thing about my platform is its trust and transparency, and making sure that whenever someone gets into a new opportunity, a new business model, that they have aligned expectations and that they can't just be like sold some fake dream. And so I really appreciate you being honest and open and playing along here.
Yeah, of course. And, I mentioned probably in the first third of our conversation, like in our first full year in 2024, we realized that we were in some relationships that were misaligned for us in the business. And that's what I meant by that was values misaligned. And we realized that there was a lot of promises that had been made by those people about what we were going to experience once we were behind the curtain, that then when we never materialized once we said yes and got behind the curtain. When I talk about nefarious people, in the industry, like we've experienced it. We've been through it.
Well, I'm glad we're having this conversation. I do think a lot of people see the life insurance industry as a scam. And I'm glad that you are an insider and that you're able to give us that inside information about that, and that you've built something that you can stand behind.
Yeah, absolutely. So pleased to be able to share. And I'll also say, like, we're so transparent that we actually do like a 2-hour information session and a site visit in person with interested recruits in our organization. So it's in person here in Orlando, but our satellite offices also, they'll live stream the information session, and they allow recruits to go into their offices and do a site visit and listen to calls and meet people and talk to them without somebody hovering over their shoulder. We let people come in here and basically see as far behind the curtain as we could possibly allow them, so that they can make their own informed decision. I think that before you get into any 100% commission opportunity or business building opportunity, it needs to be a full body hell yes. And not only hell yes to I want to make that kind of money, hell yes to I want to work with these people. And so that's why we allow people to come in, or potential recruits or interested people to come in and like really see our numbers. We run simulations with them. We let them, meet our people and walk the sales floor and listen to calls, because we know how important it is to know exactly who you're getting in bed with.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, moving on. Thank you for that a lot. How scalable is this business model versus the other ones that exist? Obviously, I have digital products, and you can put it out there, run marketing, it could scale infinitely. This, you do have to eat what you kill, then you can hire below you and keep building up like you have. How scalable is this really?
Yeah, so we found the scalability, like the fact that we have some remote teams, but we don't hire like remote individuals. We actually found that type of remote model where people are just kind of spread out. It's very difficult to scale, because some of the risk associated with just the business model in general, with advanced pay commissions, it's very difficult to scale that when you got people out there making advanced pay and you don't see them every day. You don't control their work in the sense of like you can't see what they're doing and you can't support them to close deals. So, we close that gap by creating a non-remote model, but I do believe some people could work potentially in small teams and scale to some extent. I would say that the one thing that has allowed us to be able to scale at the pace, right? Because we've done all of this in 2 years so far. The pace of our growth is almost 100% attributable to our lead generation system being in-house. If as a sales professional, if you're trying to build a sales organization, it doesn't matter what you're trying to sell really, but you need leads. That is the lifeblood of every business. And if you can master the lead generation process, you have something. That is something that's worth putting your investments into to grow. Now, if you have something and even if it's a great product, but you can't generate leads around it, it might be time to pivot.
Okay, so if someone's looking to get into this industry and they're considering this as one of their options, or maybe they're being recruited, what should they look out for in terms of, okay, this is a good lead generation model and set up for success, or this is one of those ones that is morally misaligned, if you will, that I should avoid?
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about people not selling, people in the organization not selling. So I won't touch on that stuff again. I would ask to see their actual sales numbers. I'd ask to see their leaderboards, and I'd ask to do almost kind of like a reference check, by talking to their top performers and their average performers. If they only ever talk about their top performers and what those top people are doing, top performers are outliers. And you really have no reason to believe as a brand new person going into an organization that you are going to be a top performer, right? Like, I know you're great. And also, please stop that. Like, you're self-sabotaging, like I've talked to people that are like, well, if I come into your organization, I know I'm going to be a top performer. Like, how do you know that? You don't know my sales process, but like, you need to be able to be humble enough to know like what kind of questions to ask. So I would ask to talk to people in the organization who are supposedly selling, and ask them what the sales process is like. How refined is the process? That's one thing that I find a lot of salespeople get caught up in. Like they'll go into an organization and they're not taught a sales process. The organization is just like, oh, don't worry, just get out there in front of people and you'll figure it out. Well, a sales process is one of the most high value things that an organization can have, is an actual documented sales process on how to sell and what to say and what not to say and how to overcome objections to the avatar. So if you are the one on 100% commission creating that process for an organization that's not going to pay you for it, that is some pretty high value intellectual property that you just gave away for free. So you need to know whether or not they have a sales process that's documented that they're going to train you on. That's the other thing.
I have this question that says, is this passive, yes or no? My understanding is the reality is no, although some people can build a book of business that has some income, but not enough to be a sustainable lifestyle. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the only way that this could possibly become passive is over time. Kind of like you explained in the beginning, like you would need to build your team, build your own book of business. Then you would need to build a team. That team needs to start building their book of business. Presumably you would need to be present and available to some extent to support that team and their growth and, their ability to produce. And then over time, yeah, like you could on your own pen, I think if you're writing on your own pen after like 10 years, you could be set up with some pretty good residuals on a monthly basis, maybe $6,000 to $10,000 a month in residuals. That's not bad. Passive income after about 10 years of writing on your own pen. But it just depends if that's your jam or not, right? Is that going to be enough money for you? I mean, some people would say, of course, some people would say, no way. If you want to lead a team, that team is always going to require some degree of support from you unless you get to some point in time in your team size where you're willing to outsource your work to someone else. Like, for example, at some point in time, I might hire a chief operating officer to come into my organization as an employee and replace myself, right? Like that's not something I'm looking to do in the next 3 months, but I could potentially see some point in time in the future as my life changes and things in my circumstances change. I want to be a mom. So I could see at some point in time me going, hey, you know what? I'm going to hire somebody to be the COO at Lion Rock and I'm going to replace myself and step out and just be an owner as opposed to an operator in-house.
And this is a great transition to flexibility. There are ways that you can work from anywhere doing this, but the reality, it sounds like, is the more flexibility that the person that you would work under gives you, the less likely they are to set you up for success, the more susceptible you might be to stepping into something that's setting up for failure, essentially, and just collecting money from you as opposed to collecting money from the people that you bring. And it's kind of more where people would call it a scam. And like how you define scam is really loose, but I have heard people say things like, oh, life insurance is a scam. And obviously what you're doing is not that, but the people who do give you a lot of freedom, it sounds like they'll sell you on joining their firm by letting you do whatever you want as long as you pay for your leads every month.
And also, Ben, like I want to be sensitive to the fact that there are some sales professionals out there who absolutely want that. Like I've talked to them. They're like, hey, I just put me at this compensation level, at this commission level, and like I have a network. I will generate my own leads, or I know how to generate leads.
Okay.
I want to use my own system. I don't want to buy your leads. Can I use my own leads? And there are some agencies and brokerages out there that have enough flexibility to go like, sure, I'll put you at 100% commission if you generate all of your own leads and never buy, never put me in a position to have to provide you with leads, because that's a workload that a lot of brokerage operators don't want to take on. Like I said, like that is a huge undertaking to provide leads consistently at the quality level that is necessary. We've been able to take that on because we have the expertise to do it. And the expertise we don't have, we've outsourced it to people who do have, and we have the resources to pay for it. Right. But a lot of agencies don't want to do that. But there's some killers out there that will say, hey, just put me at the higher commission level. I will find my own leads and I'll get it done, And
Okay, fair enough. So you're not the only good guy out there.
no.
What is kind of a range of time that someone should anticipate to invest into this in order to succeed? Obviously, people who work with you are full-time, but the people who are working a full-time job and they want to build a book of business on the side, what's like a realistic amount of time that they should be able to invest at a minimum in order to set themselves up for success?
Yeah. It depends on, again, what you're doing to find leads. But let's say a person, if you're working full time during the day and you want to do this on evenings and weekends, I do think that there's models that offer those types of hours and that work. You should probably give yourself at least, 2 to 4 hours in the evenings, and then just know like you're going to give up either your entire weekend or at least one entire day, your whole weekend, to work that model, to build up your book of business. Our model, working full time, typical business hours, is it's going to take about 30 to 45 days to really build that snowball that you're kind of pushing uphill. And then once that time period is up in about 30 to 45 days, people for the most part have mastered the process, and that ball starts going down and they start getting deposits all, 6 days a week. They're getting deposits for commissions. They don't even know where those commissions are coming from anymore, right? Like they're just like boom, boom, boom. They're hitting nonstop. But a solid 30 to 45 days is going to be the time it takes we tell people expect not to make any money for 30 to 45 days. Though, will you be closing sales? Yes. But remember, you only get paid when those clients make their first payment. And sometimes you might close a deal today and it's not going to pay for 2 weeks. Right. So you got to be able to kind of hold out, in the meantime.
So if you're starting as a broker, if you have your own leads, is it totally free, or are there other fees that you have to pay to get started?
Yeah. So remember, it's a highly regulated industry. So you have to get licensed just to sell life insurance or any kind of insurance product. You have to be licensed with the state where you live. And then that's going to require taking a course. And then you have to pass an exam. You have to get fingerprinted. You have to apply for the license, all of that. So in the state of Florida, where I'm located, it takes about $160 to get licensed once you've done all of that. It's a 40-hour study course and about $160. And you can get it in Florida. Then to get licensed and to sell business in any other state, you have to get licensed in that state. So you don't have to take the exam again, but you do have to purchase your license, and you can only do that after you're licensed in your home state. So we ask our agents to come in licensed in about 20 states, and that's about $2,000.
So $2,000 upfront, and then 30 to 45 days before you should expect to get paid.
Yeah. Yeah. So we tell people to come in with about $6,000 to $10,000 ready, like, in their bank account. They don't have to give me the money, but just have it in your bank account ready so that as these expenses come up, you're prepared to make these business investments in your first 30 to 45 days before that money starts to, really avalanche and come in. And also, like, I don't know people's living expenses, right? So the actual cost to start the business are about 6,000, but I usually tell people have 10,000 so that you can pay your rent or your mortgage and your car and things like that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And so how much do leads cost every month?
Yeah. In our business, so leads are 1072 per week. So we're looking at about and we have like an office administrative cost, like you could call it, let's say office rent. That's about $75 a week. So all in, and you also have to pay for your broker software. So we're looking at about just under $5,000 a month in investments and reinvestments in your business on a month to month basis.
Okay, so $6,000 to $10,000 is what you should be prepared to spend before you start making profit or making money at all.
Before you start seeing the money come in consistently.
All right, I think that's fair, and I really appreciate you disclosing that. And I think obviously people need to know that in order to make an informed decision. And you gave a nice breakdown of what those expenses are as well. You also gave time. So to make a profit, you should expect 30 to 45 days on average.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I personally, I started other businesses, as you know, and I mean, I think this is one of the very, very few business opportunities that you can start with a $10,000 or less investment and almost be guaranteed six figures in your first year. I mean, from starting other business endeavors,
And when you say almost guaranteed, you say 80% success rate. You can back that with numbers. What I want to avoid is like these wild sounding claims where people are like, yeah, make six figures. It's so easy. It's one of the only businesses. You have the ability to back this with actual data.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can say.
Right. And so what you mean is this is one of the few businesses that you could start for as low as $6,000 to $10,000 that has an 80% success rate with people making on average six figures or more for the people who succeed.
That is correct. Yes, that is the best way to phrase it, and that is correct. Yeah. Which I think is just very different from every other business model I've ever built. Typically I have been invested six figures before I made back my first $10,000, in profit, and was even able to say like, oh, look, I made $10,000. Oh, great. I'm only negative 90,000 now. Yeah.
You'd be embarrassed, or I would be embarrassed if I told you how much I've invested into this company so far.
No, I get it. I get it because that is typical. That is very typical of any kind of business endeavor. And trust me, we've been through it too, right? Like you're making large investments, you're in the red six figures before you make back 10. That's what's most common. And we take pride in being able to say, like, we built this business model the way we did so that people could make six figures their first year, assuming they come in, follow the process, coachable, hungry, humble, willing to be a part of a team, et cetera, right? Like,
yeah,
if they're willing to play in the sandbox, yeah, like you can completely make that kind of return in your first year with only a $6,000 to $10,000 startup cost.
And how beginner friendly is this? If someone has like no skills, no background, is it like, all right, teach monkey to read script in this outcome, this objection, this answer? Or did you mention a lot of people come from like sales backgrounds already? Like if you're just a green beginner, is that 80% success rate relevant to you, or is that just people with sales experience?
Yeah, that is a really good question. So, no, so it's so interesting because people who come in with zero sales experience tend to do better than people who come in with sales experience. The people who come in with sales experience, typically we have to help them unlearn what they already know about how to sell. It doesn't mean that they're bad at sales, but oftentimes they are not well versed with this type of consultative sell, and which is really more of like a backdoor sell, really trying to do a lot of discovery and understanding of what are the circumstances of a very specific, nuanced circumstances about a very specific person that are going to be different from person to person, right? Because life insurance is based on a person's health and age. So they're asking some really sensitive questions, right? That you wouldn't typically be asking if what you're accustomed to selling is cell phones, or solar, you know? So you got to get comfortable not only with the topic, which is death and life, right? But you got to be comfortable with asking really sensitive personal questions. And you have to be able to build enough rapport with prospects to earn the right to ask those questions. Otherwise, and remember, like the sale is over the phone. So they don't know you. They can't see your face. They're not experiencing your facial expressions to make judgments about your sincerity or your competence, right? So it's all going to be about tonality on these phones with these prospects and helping them gain trust really, really quickly and understand that you're the expert and you have their best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And that's something that people without sales experience, they actually sometimes can catch it quicker because I don't have to train them to stop doing certain things that worked for them in other places.
And what would you say that the risk that someone who becomes a life insurance agent is to lose money? And in context of your brokerage versus not in your brokerage. And I think that what you said is 10% success rate outside of your brokerage and 80% success rate within. And in both instances, people have to invest money up front. So, like, pretty high risk for people not working within a brokerage that has a high success rate if they're just kind of doing it on their own. But fairly and low risk, 80% success rate is pretty high if they work with you guys. I'm not trying to sell. You have the data to back this up that you'll share. So I can say that with confidence.
Any opportunity that it requires upfront investments, even the investments to get licensed, at least those are assets, right? Like once you have them, you have them. You can use them anywhere, Lion Rock or somewhere else, doesn't matter. They're going to go with you, right? But any opportunity that requires upfront investments is going to require a risk. I think as an individual, you have to decide what your goals really are. And you have to be really, really clear on that. We made many investments in many different businesses that had either no return or just mediocre or average returns, right? Until we found the thing that hit. And so, do you want to be a business owner or not? I agree. This is not for everyone. It absolutely is not. Even Lion Rock, with the success rates that we've had, is not for everyone, nor do we want everyone here. This is for people that know that they're committed to building something of their own, that they want to be a business, they want to be self-employed, they want to be an entrepreneur, and they happen to also want or find benefit in being a part of a team, right? Because not every entrepreneur or business owner wants to be a part of a team either. Right. So you got to be really clear on what it is that you want before you're ever going to be willing to make the investments. I wouldn't invest in something I don't want or care for or see value in, but people who do see value in that thing are going to be willing to invest. It's funny how you can find the money for just about anything when you want it.
Yeah. So what are the most common reasons that people who do this fail?
Yeah. Great question. Financial mismanagement is the first one.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So we receive advanced commissions, right? So you're getting 9 months worth of commissions up front, which is essentially a loan, right? You're getting that from the life insurance carrier. That is a loan from a bank, period. Failure to recognize that is problematic, right? Because let's say, for example, my customer makes their first payment. And so I get, let's just say, make it easy, I get $1,000 for the first 9 months. But then in month 2, they don't pay, right? And I'm calling and I'm following up, but they don't answer my calls. So, they don't pay. Let's say they got a non-sufficient funds. So the money wasn't not in their bank account when the life insurance carrier went to go draft the payment. Now I'm going to experience what's called a chargeback, meaning that the life insurance carrier now wants their money.
No way. I was saying that the carrier takes on the risk.
Yeah, they do to a certain extent.
Of course, this is a business that is built on risk management. Of course, they manage that.
Right. So they're going to come back to me and say, hey, your customer didn't pay, but we paid you $1,000 for the first 9 months. So if you can't get your customer to pay, you owe us $1,000, right? So I can do one of two things. I can go, oh, okay. I'll write a check, or here's my card. I'll pay you back your $1,000. Here you go. But that is not the typical thing. What most agents do who are actively writing business is they'll just sell out of it, right? So it's like, okay, no problem. Now I got a deal. That deal was $300. This deal was $200. This deal was $800.
Wow. So people could theoretically end up in debt.
Yeah.
If they mismanage their finances.
Yes. So The other issue is because our commissions are advanced for some people, they come in and they start making more money than they've ever made before. And then they start buying dumb shit. I mean, there's no other way to put it, Ben. They start buying dumb shit before they should have started buying that stuff. And I understand what it's like to want things and to especially need things like a car. But like, did you need to get yourself into a $1,200 car payment? Probably not. You could have probably just got a, $300 to $400 car payment and been just fine. But people start buying things that they didn't need to buy. They start over leveraging themselves on all kinds of shit. And then they cannot pay their business expenses to keep their business going.
How do you train your team to manage that?
Yeah, those are conversations we have all the time with them. We have a degree of like financial education with our team. We help our team find tax professionals. We help them. Part of it is just educating them about how much they're going to have to pay every single week and when to pay those, like setting those proper expectations so they know like, hey, this is a pay to play opportunity. If you can't pay this much on this day, you're not going to be able to play. So be ready. This is coming, right? And so those are some of the pain points that a lot of business owners, they're just winging it, right? They don't know how much to pay for marketing. They don't know how much to pay to leads. They don't know who to pay. They don't know when to pay. They don't know who to hire. We are answering all of those questions for people and just making it really black and white. Like, this is what you're going to buy. This is how much it costs. This is when we bill you. And this is what you're going to get in return for your investment. And we make that consistent. And people have been, loving it to the extent that we keep 83% in an industry that usually only keeps 10%.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those numbers speak for themselves, I will say. And I really thank you for being so transparent. I'm learning a lot myself here. And I can see why people would have a bad taste in their mouth from how other people run insurance agencies.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you personally. I know that you are a highly ethical person and someone that I deeply trust. And so if you're running your business the way that you are, it's because you believe in it. And so I truly, from the bottom of my heart, believe that. And so this is really interesting. I think it's really important that we do expose what is wrong out there. And a lot of what I'm doing is trying to figure out what's real and what's not real, and then show like who are the people that you can trust versus the people that you can't trust. Because even like the influencer guru space has gotten such a bad name because there's so many people out there who will just sell you a dream, take your money, and deliver no value. And so all the people who do deliver value are getting screwed by the people who don't. And I think that what we're doing right now by talking about the intricacies of how this works and the mechanics and who it's not for and how it doesn't work and how you can set people up for success, this is actually going to help you by being transparent and honest and help your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah. And the last thing I would ever want is for anybody to come into my organization and, start training and go, oh, I didn't know. Nobody, like, honestly, we over communicate so much. Like, there is no way that you didn't know. I know, because I told you myself, right? Like, I personally communicated this thing. It's in writing. It's here. It's there. And that's part of what we learned from getting burned so badly in one of our early relationships in the industry was like, what questions we should have asked, again, hindsight teaches so much, the questions we should have asked, and kind of like push for answers on. And also like what was kind of like our fault. Like we were just kind of naive in this area and that now we know better,
So in terms of getting started, we can wrap this up. What resources helped you get started? Was it just that one guy that recruited you? Are there creators out there or courses that people should be taking a look into to get to the bottom of how can I do good and succeed here? What would you recommend?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're working with an agency that wants to recruit you or, you're kind of like they're vetting you or you're vetting them. And let's say that they've passed the red flag test that we've talked about, then they should cover the cost of your licensing course. It's a 40-hour course for life insurance, or if it's life and health insurance, and I believe it's like a 50-hour course, but they should pay for the cost of that.
Do you guys do that?
We do. Yep. Yeah.
I know that you said $6,000 to $10,000 to start. I thought that $2,000 was for licensing in like 20 states and that they had to pay that out of pocket.
Yes. Yeah. They will pay that out of pocket directly to the states once they get their license in their home state. But in order to take the licensing exam, you first have to take a course, a study course. And that study course for life only is about $200. And then the agency or brokerage recruiting you should be willing to pay for that.
Okay. And can I circle back to a data point that we talked about earlier? 30 to 45 days, time to profit. Is that once you start selling, or does that include the time that it takes to get all the certifications, study, pass the exam, and so forth?
Once you start selling.
Okay. How long does it take to get certified? So like from the day I'm committed to being an insurance broker, the day I get my first check.
I hate to answer with it depends. But okay, so think about it. So it's a 40-hour course, right? So that's a full-time job. Matt and I, we passed our course. We completed our course study and we passed the exam in 1 week because remember, we were transitioning from one business to another. And quite frankly, we had nothing else to do but pivot really fast. If you have nothing else to do, you can absolutely finish the study course in 1 week. Now, if you have another full-time job and a spouse and a family and kids that are relying on you, and the only time you can study is for 2 hours before you go to bed at night and the weekends, it's probably going to take you 2 to 3 weeks to finish 40 hours worth of study. And it's super boring material like any other licensing course, right? But the goal is to memorize enough to pass the exam and then you can forget it all. Yeah, there isn't much in the course that's gonna make you successful in the role, if I'm honestly,
Okay, and so moving on to fit, who would you say this is for and who is it not for? People who are considering insurance brokerage as a path, or being an insurance broker as a path. How can I be like, you know what, this is for me, I should do this, or maybe this isn't for me?
You got to have some grit, and you got to be like a high performer, willing to put in the work and make the investments, right? So when we talk about business investments, I'm talking about energy, your energy resources, your time resources, and your financial resources. You have to be willing to make those investments. And if you can do those things and you can show up fully, right? I mean, play full out, play to win, and do that consistently, then this could be an industry for you that you could find some success in. And then your own success in this industry will pave the way for you to bring other people in who would want to work with you as their leader. But if you're like wishy-washy about whether or not you even want to be in business for yourself, wishy-washy about whether or not you are competent at sales, things like that, then it's going to be really hard for you to make the ongoing investments that keep the commissions coming in. I don't want to make it seem like you have to hustle and grind, because there's models like us that like have done as much as we can to like eliminate hustle and grind as much as possible. But still, even in our model, like you got to want to fucking win. You got to like to sell. You got to like to talk to people. You got to like to have relationships and invest in relationships. And like, you got to like seeing, your bank account grow as a result of efforts that you're consistently making. If you're more like a laid back kind of person, this probably isn't for you.
And one thing that you said at the beginning of the call that I want to lean into is you had certain, and you didn't call it this, but I'm going to call it unfair advantages. You had certain connections. You had a certain background. So what were your unfair advantages that helped you succeed?
This is one thing that a lot of people don't know about the industry until you start maybe like interviewing with a lot of places, is every single agency or brokerage firm will promise that they're paying the highest commissions in the industry, and then it's like a song you're just going to hear all over and over again. Part of the reason that agencies or brokerages get access to the highest commissions in the industry is because they have the sales volume that life insurance carriers pay attention to. So in that volume, typically for carriers to even care about who you are, you got to be selling in the six figures and up. You got to say like, hey, I have a team of 10 people. We're doing 500,000 up a month, or we're doing $1 million a month. And that's going to give you some leverage and some negotiating power in front of the people who are paying the commissions, right? You can actually go there and say, like we have the ability now to go back to some of our contracts and renegotiate them and say, hey, we have a bigger team and now we're doing $2 million a month. So what do you got? But until you have some leverage like that, or you're affiliating with an organization that has that kind of leverage, you're just getting average commissions. You're not really getting the best that these organizations can pay.
All right, great. Well, I want to wrap this up. So is there anything that we haven't covered that you think is important to communicate to this audience?
Just in general, right? I remember when I was a person working a full-time job, getting burned out, struggling to make ends meet, feeling undervalued and underpaid for what I was bringing to the table. Like I was that person, and I was you at one point in time, right? I was not an entrepreneur. I didn't even see myself that way. I kind of thought like, who the hell does that? I have my MBA. I have my master's in human resources, and still I didn't see myself being a non-employee, an entrepreneur, right? But I had a desire in my heart to create something, and I wanted to do that specifically with a partner, and I didn't find this level of success when I created businesses on my own. I wanted to do this with someone because I knew like I don't have all the skill sets to do it well, or to do it big. But one day I'm going to meet someone and we're going to help each other do this, So if the desire is on your heart, then pursue it, right? Maybe it's not insurance, maybe it's something else, but seek to make an impact in the world in a meaningful way. And when you do that, the money will come. The money will come. I promise. Life insurance is not the thing that I feel like, oh, God sent us to earth to have a life purpose in life insurance. Like that's not it. But God sent us here for another purpose, right? Which is the bigger spiritual vision of life on my heart and on my husband's heart to support people through addictions recovery. And what I do know is that God gave us this vehicle to be able to get to the place where we are supporting people with addictions recovery in some way or another. I still don't know exactly what that looks like, but I do know that this vehicle came into our life so that we could get there and meet the right people and create the resources that are going to help us do that thing. A lot of people are like trying to build that thing and really not finding success. And you're ignoring opportunities that are around you. Like vehicles are showing up to take you to where you want to go. And you're just ignoring them because they're not your destination. And you don't realize that like you're supposed to be jumping in a vehicle that's going to take you to the destination. Be more open-minded and open heart. And just look at what opportunities are around you that you could use to create real resources and wealth and opportunities for other people and impact in the world. And that's going to be the thing that's going to take you to your passion, purpose, your whatever God put on your heart.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Totally agree. And thank you for that. It was an amazing closing statement. And I applaud you for recognizing that you do have weaknesses and for finding a partner that complemented you to set you up for success and your ego didn't get in the way of that.
And there's no way in hell that I could have done this without him. And he'll say the same thing about me, and we're both like, what? But you're so smart, But honestly, like I wouldn't have wanted to. I wouldn't have wanted to do this alone. There's so many challenges associated with being a business owner. I feel so blessed that I have somebody that I truly like just trust with my life to be in the trenches with. And for some people, that's not going to be a spouse. That's going to be somebody else, a best friend, a sibling maybe, or something like that. But Matt and I both really believe that the purpose of family is to help one another become successful and create wealth in the world. For that reason, we do have a lot of family members and spouses that work here and couples because we really believe in that. Matt's brother works here. My nephew works here. My nephew's girlfriend works here. And it's just like we believe that's part of the biggest purpose of family is help each other create meaning in the world. And with meaning comes wealth.
Well, I mean, this circles back to the very beginning of the call where I was trying to find what's the point? Like, why make all this money? I have certain numbers that I feel like if I've hit that, I've hit my personal goal. And then I want to contribute for the sake of contribution. There's not a number in mind. And like, if this makes $1 billion, that just means I helped a bunch of people, not because I want $1 billion. And I think that you have deeper purpose that's driving you and that you've articulated it really well here at the end of the call.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. And that is an ethos and a culture that we've built into the organization that we talk to our team about because I want them to have a bigger purpose too. Like, yes, we are helping people with our products that we sell, but I want them to have a bigger life purpose than just selling life insurance. I want them to care about something even bigger than that.
I mean, you've been talking a lot about Lion Rock and you've been talking about how it's the better solution. So would you like to plug any recruitment words here?
Yeah, absolutely. If you live in Tampa, Clearwater, Orlando, Greater Orlando, Florida, Seymour, Tennessee, or Knoxville, Tennessee, these are the 4 locations where we have offices. We have a growing office in Las Vegas too. It's a smaller team, but if you're in any of those areas and you're interested in checking us out, please visit lionrockfinancial.jobs. lionrockfinancial.jobs. You can also visit us on Instagram, which is at lionrock_careers. And once you visit us, you'll learn a little bit more about us and the type of opportunity that's available and what it takes to be a successful agent here. You'll be able to schedule a call with a recruiter if that's something that you want to do. And if you schedule a call with a recruiter and it sounds like it's aligned for you, then you can schedule an information session and you can actually go in person to one of the offices in your area to visit and to talk to the people there. And it doesn't get any more transparent than that. Come see us.
Amazing. Oriana, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being transparent and honest. And I think that we did a good job of exposing the insurance industry in a way that tells people what to expect and also providing a path, because I think a lot of people believe the insurance industry is broken. And there's things that you've done to actually fix it. You've created an organization that is scalable and serves your customers and serves yourself both in a way that is mutually beneficial. And so I think that you're doing a good job of taking the bad, discarding it, taking the good and doubling down on it.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ben. I appreciate it. This is our baby.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Oriana.
Thank you, Ben. Have a great day.
You too.